Changing Lanes, the official podcast of BMW.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Changing Lanes. My name is Nicki Shields and I am particularly excited about this episode because, well, we have basically got BMW royalty in the house. Just to give you a little bit of an idea about who our special guest is on this show. He initially started working as a freelance graphic designer for record labels and design agencies. He then moved on and worked at various industrial design studios prior to his graduation as a designer in 2003. Am I giving you some clues here? He then joined the BMW Group as an exterior designer in the same year and continued working for BMW. From 2009, he was part of the team assembled to create the BMW I products and brand. I'm giving you some more clues here. And then from 2013 to 2016, he headed up the BMW Group's advanced design studio. But most recently, on the 1st of July, 2019, he took over responsibility for design at BMW I. Can you guess who our special guest is? Yes, it is indeed the very talented Kai Langer. Kai, welcome. Hopefully I got that little introduction right for you. I'm sure there's lots to discuss, though, that I missed out along the way.
Yeah, thank you, Nicki. Thank you for the invitation. That was a very good introduction. Didn't know that I'm that interesting. Yeah, it was. Yeah, thank you very much.
No, we're just touching on the surface there. We're going to get all the nitty gritty from you and what you've been involved in over your career, but obviously most recently, of course, is your position as head of design at BMW I, which is very, very exciting.
That's very exciting indeed. Yeah, I have a lot to do, and days becoming very, very interesting and exhausting, I have to say, even more these days because we have a lot of things to show. And that's the reason why we are here and together today to talking about what we just recently showed to the public.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been lots of big launches recently when it comes to the BMW I brand. That's actually quite a nice way to start. I wasn't going to start with that first question, but I would love to know, Kai, what is a typical day for you? And thanks, by the way, for making time for us, because I know you do have a really busy schedule. But what is a typical day for head of BMW I design?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I answered it already last time, and I'm actually glad to answer it again because it changes indeed from day to day. And I am not saying what I said already last time because from last time it changed again. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, last time I said I actually want to make every day around to my team, but obviously during the current time it's not possible because I would not see them. So what I do instead is I give them a call. This is what we do nowadays. We call each other, but at least I can hear them. There is some daily business to do. So doing some emails. Actually, I can say I get more emails than I actually want to have. Some of them are pretty nasty, actually. There's a lot of system stuff that I have to do. And then there's a lot of stuff that I actually have to answer just to get things running. Yeah, and then there's slowly then there are really interesting things to start up, like really taking care about the products and the creative things that we have to take care about in the different stages because we have multiple projects running. Some are already in a phase where we are close to get them done, to finish them up.
Yeah.
And of course, we're thinking about the last nuts and bolts in these projects, and others they're in the starting phase where we are discussing sketches and really talking about a feel of products and about the pure emotions of the products. And this is what I actually really like. I'm talking with the same people about when I can say about what kind of screws we're using, and on the other side is what kind of dynamic we want to achieve with that design. So this is actually my daily business, having these balance, and that's quite a dynamic in between hours of a day. These are my typical days.
clearly a job that you absolutely love and thrive in. Must be quite hard in the pandemic trying to keep an eye on what the rest of your team are doing all remotely. But I know, as well as obviously having an amazing job as head of I design, I've got in my notes here your age. I feel a bit rude sharing this. I'm not quite sure I would like it if someone shared my age with everyone listening. But well, I'll just go with, you're in your 40s. You're a dad of 2 kids, and you've obviously always been interested in design and creating things, whatever that may be, since you started your career and even sort of in the early days. But what else? Is there anything else? If we wanted to get to know Kyle Langer, what else should we know, should our listeners know about you?
I'm a bit careful about like what people should know. I don't know if people should know something about me. I don't know if I'm that interesting.
What would you like them to know? What would you like them to know?
I mean, yeah, I love what I do. I actually love to share it with the people around me here in the company. I love to share it with my team because it's not about me. Yes, we are sitting together. I'm talking with you. You talk with me. But it is not about me. Basically, I can say I'm sitting here as a representative because I'm working with a team. It's not me doing everything there. It's like I see things that we can use to do these products. I'm working with people who have great ideas. I'm surrounded by people with great ideas. I'm surrounded by people who have really great minds and are super smart and clever. And the only thing that I have to do is I have to see these clever ideas. And the only thing I have to do is like to pick these smart ideas and to pick the right smart ideas and put them together into the right product for the right answers. This is the only thing I have to do. And that is actually kind of easy. Yeah, and the others come to the great ideas, So the only thing I have to do is to pick the right ones together to the product that I estimate is the right answer for our customers and for the future. It's the only thing I do. Nothing about it. So what could people know? I'm interested. I'm curious about what is happening around me. I'm curious about what's happening with the world, even more today. And I feel that we have to take more responsibilities more than ever since, actually, that companies have to take responsibilities. And actually, I really like what BMW is heavily communicating right now, that we actively take these responsibilities with our products to save the environment and fulfill regulations and go even further. Is what I really like, because we simply have to do. And we have the possibilities. I mean, we have the power to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned there you're a father of 2 kids. So I'm sure they're both very intrigued about the environment and sustainability and what we should all be doing to protect our planet. So are they proud of your job? Do they understand what you do? I don't know how old your kids are.
They do. And they are 6 and 9. Yeah, they're on their way. They understand everything quite well. And they're pretty critical with my job, I have to say. They're not running around and say, "Oh, Papa, you're doing everything so well and you saved the world." They go and like, did you really think about that? And why there are still cars with like combustion engines? Why you're still doing this? They're pretty critical. They're seriously critical. And that's good like that, because they have to go nasty on all these things. They really have to push me on this. This is what the next generation has to do.
Yeah,
and I support them on this one.
Yeah, your kids are always going to be your greatest critics, aren't they? They're always going to give you an honest answer of what they're thinking.
Of course,
keep you on your toes.
Of course, yeah.
But I think, as you mentioned earlier, you obviously did another episode of Changing Lanes with Jonathan. And I think he mentioned a phrase which I really loved, from comics to cars, because I think you started out drawing comics, designing record covers, and now obviously you've moved into the automotive world. What is it about cars that got you ticking, that got you excited? Because obviously they're very different to designing record covers.
Yeah, obviously it's different. Obviously it's totally different. First of all, one thing is like 2D, the other thing is 3D. Cars, on one hand, is actually the coolest, or let's say the biggest product that you could design where people like really stepping into, and it's a mass product that's like built in a big volume, where people like sitting inside and really interact like with the full body. The next thing where people interact with the full body are like buildings. You have to become an architect, but this is not mass volume. That's then one house, right?
Yeah.
But cars is a mass volume product where people fully interact with the full body, right? It's like a immersive experience that people do. So that's a task. That's a task you can do as a designer, and it's three-dimensional. So you have to go in all dimension. You have to consider all dimensions with it. Graphic design is like two-dimension. Of course, it's like a piece of paper, and you go two-dimension. It's more on a psychological side. It goes way more on the psychological side. But when it comes to like the emotional side, there are similarities. When I think about, you just mentioned the comic thing, when I think about comics and you want to provoke emotions, first of all, a car is when it comes to industrial design, the most emotional product that you could see. You would agree with me when I say a car is more emotional than a coffee machine or a toaster, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know how it will be in the future, but today it is.
Although I do feel quite emotional about my coffee machine. If it was taken away from me, I would cry. But...
Yes, but maybe for other reasons. Yeah, I would too. But at least from my side, for different reasons.
Yeah.
Than for a car.
I feel like this is a moment we need a coffee break now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is what happens when we're both in our home studios. There's no one there. We can't click our fingers. No one's there to provide us with the coffee. Got to go make it ourselves.
Yeah, that's sad.
Anyway, back to the cars. Yeah.
Back to the emotional side of it. When we talk about comics, to provide emotions in comics, for example, you talk about black and white, you talk about shadow and sun. And when you think about Frank Miller, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with Frank Miller, 300, Batman, black and white story and stuff like that. Yeah. He's like a master of the black and white, how you set the lighting and you get emotion with like a dark sun and like long shadows, and you create a strong emotion, like really strong emotions with like, oh, that's a bit scary. It's something that you could see in these old noir films, it's like it's a very strong tensional kind of like dark emotions. You can see that in cars as well when you set a volume like really deep inside and you catch a lot of shadow there and a strong highlight on top of it.
Wow,
there you really find similarities,
like that. That's
right?
Fascinating.
You can play with that, and this is like something, because the emotion psychologically works the same way. Where you feel like some sort of like intrigued, dark feeling, like, oh, this is becoming mystical. It gets like hard if you want to go into the love side, into the beauty side, because then it becomes like harder, seriously harder.
So you find the beautiful side is harder than the more emotional, dramatic side?
It is way harder.
Okay, why is that?
I don't know, because I'm not a psychologist, but okay, if you go back to what people could know about me, I had a previous life where I was like on a maybe semi-professional music side before I jumped into the design side. Okay. So I was touring around with a band, and we did music, and it was pretty hard music, right? And to express emotions through music, you get an immediate response, right?
Yeah.
And music is pure emotion. It's easy to express aggression with music, especially in rock music. That is kind of like easy. There's a certain amount of like chords you can use on a guitar. It's a specific kind of rhythm you can use, and therefore you create like a certain amount of aggression. But to express beauty and love, that's like way harder. Because really? The ingredients you have to use are way more subtle. They're not as direct than using the aggressive ones, Everything that you use to express beautiness and love is way more subtle and way more distinctive in its use than super aggressive, dynamic. That's more straightforward. You know?
Yeah. The obvious thing that springs to my mind slightly differently, but is like when I drive certain cars, I'm very aggressive behind the wheel, and I turn my music up very loudly and I drive like a bit of an idiot. But then there are some cars that I'll get into, like an i3, and I have a completely different feeling, and it's like this calmness, it's this serenity, and I just sort of enjoy the calmness, I suppose, that you get from driving an electric car. But it doesn't just come from all electric cars. You know, obviously that's been fine-tuned over and over again, which is really interesting. So I guess that's one thing that you've kind of looking at when you're dealing with the BMW I design, that you're trying to draw out a certain emotion from someone when they get in the car and when they start driving.
Yes, we did. I can tell you, because I was around when we did the i3 back then. And especially with the interior designer, I was like pretty close with him. And we exactly talked about this, because you can go like crazy with this car, because you obviously know that the i3 has an acceleration like
beats your M4, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can go crazy with this one, but you don't have to. And you
beats
actually
an M4 from 0 to 30. I should just add that part. just 0 to 30. Just in case, anyone thinks I'm crazy saying that.
But that one goes quick, very quick. But you don't have to, and you don't feel you have to in this car. Because it's more like the easiness in the car, and we designed it that way. You know, we designed it that you feel you don't have to, you feel more relaxed, and you feel actually cool, that you're not under pressure, that you have to act a certain way. Yeah. There are products that give you the feeling that you have to act in a certain way, otherwise you don't fulfill an expectation that this product might apply to you. Mm-hmm. You know, there are products that look like that you feel that you have to act in a certain way that people might expect from you while sitting in that product. That is kind of like complex, but
it's fascinating though. It's actually a total psychological experiment. I realise I've been tricked all these years.
Yeah,
all
you know what? Me as well.
Messaging.
And the thing is, like, me as well. It's like I get tricked the same way. You know, it's like, but we all get tricked that way. Yeah, and it's been done by people like me.
So right, okay, so you're the one that we need to hold accountable for this.
But the thing is, like, that's not the way we do it at BMW I. This is what I want to say. It's like we want to be honest with these things, and we really think that our product shouldn't be like that. We want to be more honest.
Yeah. But it's a nice feeling to have. Like, you know, you don't want to get into a car and feel aggressive and feel like you've got to drive fast. You want to actually get in a car and enjoy the whole experience, whether you're sitting in traffic or not. You want that calmness and the serenity, because that just brings a sense of sort of mindfulness that, you know, is what I feel at the moment is every demographic is looking for. Everyone needs that moment of time to themselves, and actually sitting in your car and driving is that opportunity for that, or it can be.
Honestly, we want to give you the choice if you want to. We don't want to force you to be aggressive in your driving behavior, because we want to give you the choice. If you want to be relaxed, or if you want to go full steam. I mean, I know how much fun it is to go full steam if you want to. Yeah, you know, it's like I do as well if I want to. But at least I want to have the choice, and not one sitting in the car and it's like, now I have to because the car looks like this. No, actually, no. I simply like
when
if
you
I want to.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when the lights go green at the traffic lights. Less calm.
Yeah, why not? If you want to.
So tell me a bit more. I mean, it's so fascinating to hear, actually, you know, just the psychological side of all of this. But what can you tell us? I know this is a big question, so it's probably quite difficult to break it down. But, you know, the I design process, where does it begin? I mean, I guess if we look at the I cars, what was it? Was it the I'm probably going to get this wrong, but you can correct me. i3, i8, then obviously we've got now the i4, the iX, the
iX3 we have, exactly.
I mean, that is an amazing sort of catalogue already of fully electric cars. But how do you go from just having the i3 to then having this, you know, incredible sort of extensive number of models?
So how we go with all these different projects in our process, you mean?
Yeah, when it comes to the design, I'm
Yeah.
sure someone's like, right, can you build us the i4, please?
So before we come to the i4 in particular, I have to say, any product or project in BMW I, we start the same way. Because since the beginning with BMW I, we are about pioneering, right? We started 2006, 2007 with this Project I. I mean, you're familiar with it. I mean,
It's amazing, isn't it? So ahead of the curve, so
that
ahead
was
of everyone else.
Project I, and it was about pioneering about like future mobility in general. They didn't know what it is about, and it ended up in like BMW I and the pioneering of electromobility for the BMW group. The pioneering thinking still there, and every project that we start is been under our statements of like pioneering sustainability, pioneering aesthetics, and ultimately human. So these, let's say, strategy statements are always there. So every project is beginning with these strategy statements, and everything that we do, starting with the sketches, is been like proved and balanced between these strategy statements. It's like pioneering sustainability, pioneering aesthetics, and ultimately human. It's like everything has to work towards these goals, mission statements, or whatever you want to call it. So these are our primarily like ideas where to design for. And beside that, we know what we do it for. We don't do it for ourselves. We pioneer for design. So everything what we do is like we have to go the step further for design. We have to pioneer for our customers. We have to pioneer also for the company. Everything is do this step forward for the company, for customers, for the design, and also for our colleagues and for ourselves. I mean, we find out things that we didn't know yesterday. It's like we develop everything, and that's our culture. That's still there since 2006, I have to say, and we keep going with that. And every single product is like developed under this culture, and of course, like in a different balance. With an i3, we went like really step forward. We really went like a lot of steps forward because we felt we have to like go so much forward that we really pull the rest behind us, to make really big steps forward because we felt we have to. With other products, we say like this product will be later placed for customers which are like in between somewhere. They don't know yet what to choose. They're willing to choose something new, but they don't know yet. And so we can't do the big steps on one thing. So we have to be a little bit careful on this one, but we have to use the new technology there. It's like we have to balance it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But still, with all our three main objectives that I just mentioned. This is the way we do our design process. And once we made all the sketches according to these main objectives and selected the right ones, then of course we go like the real process that BMW can provide us here. And of course, we use then what people know how to build cars here, because BMW knows how to build cars since 100 years. Why not using it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they do know it quite well in here.
So how long or how many times do you draw a design of a car before getting it right? How much of your time do you spend, perfecting a specific design for a car? On the drawing phase, just the drawing?
On the drawing phase. I could tell you design is never, ever done. I mean, you might have heard it plenty of times from designers, because we are never done. You could bring the designer of a car to the finished car parking on the road down there, and he would say like, can we change this here? And you're like, hey, come on, you're done already since 2 years, because it's in the tools, my friend. But you always find something that you could have done differently, right? But obviously, there is the time where you're done with changing something.
So doing those sketches, is it like weeks on end doing different sketches, or?
It's differently. It's like with everything that is like creative and subjective, nothing is written in a book. If design would have been written in the book, I would buy it immediately, Sometimes you do your first sketch and then you sketch another 2 weeks just to find out that your first sketch was the right one.
Really?
Yeah, and then you find out like, oh, okay, another 2 weeks of just finding out that the first one was the right one. But anyway, the 2 weeks were like beneficial because
you needed to go on that journey.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because they were beneficial just to find out that the first one was the right one. Sometimes you do
Yeah.
things wrong just to find out what was the righter one,
I do it every day. I decide what am I going to wear. I go through all my different outfits and I put this first one on that I tried on.
Yeah. So it's always the thing in our team. Sometimes we don't know what is right. We just plenty of times find out how it's not right, and and so we slowly come to the point what is lesser wrong, if I could say that way.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah, you have to just go through those decisions to make sure that you come back to the beginning to make sure that one is the right decision. So obviously, being head of BMW I design, talk us through what the typical design elements are of the BMW I series.
With BMW I mean, you just mentioned it. We've got meanwhile, a couple of different products. And of course, they share things like Hofmeisterknick and also the kidney. But for BMW I, they share things like a more subtle things like a clean and precise way of dealing with graphics and volumes. That's what we at BMW I really like to focus on. And our design at BMW I is always very human-centered, as I just mentioned, with our ultimately human approach, is meaning that the person is in focus and not the technique itself. I mean, this is like really, really important. And everything that we do in our designs that you could find on all of our cars, everything that we do in our designs has to have a reason to be there. And that's like to us like a big part of being sustainable, because if you just throw things on the car which don't have a reason, then it's not sustainable, because it's like, why is it there? That doesn't make sense. So, and then it's like it's waste, right? And therefore you have to be sustainable also with what you use. Things have to have a reason. Also with how you deal with lines, with volumes, with everything that you do, it needs to have a reason, and therefore it becomes authentic. And that's how we treat our designs in general. And we also hope that there is like, with all the products like standing then next to each other, people can see that there's like a family coming together, that they look similar, that you can see and feel that they come from one hand, from one family. And of course, here and there, you can see some blue and getting them all together. But what we also want to avoid is like creating like symbols and pieces that look exactly the same on all the cars, that people see like, okay, that is like one element that you can identify, becoming like BMW I all the time, because this might age very quickly.
Right, okay.
And this is also not that sustainable, because then you have to replace it, but then you have still cars which are there with them, and then people might like, okay, I have this car with this element, but now the new car is out there with a newer one. My one looks then so old. And this is not a feeling that we want to give to our customers, because we don't feel this is that sustainable. So we think differently.
Yeah, really interesting. So I know also as well, off the back of that, BMW I really stands for sustainability without sacrifice. I guess that's slightly to do with what you've just been discussing, but what else can you tell us about it?
That's very important to us. Sustainability thinking is very, very important to us from the beginning, because we really think that without the importance of sustainability in products, in how they also interact with their environment and where they driving and how they interact with the cities and their environment. Without that, we can't survive as a company. This is how we really believe in as BMW I. And a lot of time, sustainability is like stigmatized with you have to sacrifice something. If I have to be sustainable, I can't have this.
I've got to give something
up. I have to give something up, right? And then, of course, if you want to offer a premium product, a lot of people won't accept that. And we say, okay, you can't you can have a premium product, and we say you can be sustainable, and we promise to you, you won't feel any sacrifice. The thing is, I don't say that you won't sacrifice, because it might be that you don't have anything that you had before, but you won't feel any sacrifice,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely fascinating because, not just when it comes to cars, it's with everything, isn't it? That we're trying to be more sustainable, whether it's, giving up meat and swapping it for some sort of meat alternative. You feel like you've got to give up something or you're missing out on something, but actually it's just finding the right alternative so that you don't feel like you have sacrificed anything.
Yeah. And what we say is we make it even better for you. It's like we promise that we can find out things that we can make it even better for you, and we propose you a future where you where the sustainable feel, where you can have even luxury without any sacrifice or surrender.
Yeah. Really interesting. I think the other thing is, when it comes to sustainability, so many people are like, oh, well, we'll just do it less. We'll still drive our internal combustion engine car to work, but we'll just do it a bit less. You can still drive to work. You don't need to do it less. You don't need to experience the world any less. Just do it in a different way and you can be sustainable.
Exactly. You don't have to have less fun or something like this.
Exactly.
Even more.
I can't imagine the next generation are going to want to have less fun, that's for sure.
No, for sure.
Now, there is actually a feature that most people might not have on their radar yet when it comes to car design, and that's the sound of an EV, which I love. I can hear an electric BMW come from like miles away. It is such a distinctive sound and I can recognize it so easily. But why is the sound of an EV so important when it comes to the sound design?
Yeah, sound is really important. We just talked about this music experience, and actually I would like to encourage everybody who's then hearing this podcast to really go into music experience and really listen to what is music doing with everybody who's listening to music. Music is not just listening to a melody, and if I like this melody and if it's a nice one, or if it's making me like dancing or crying or like flipping out or driving aggressively or slowly or whatever. It's also like if I go close to the speakers, it can feel it. If I can feel a bass, if there is a rhythm that makes me dance, like samba style, or if it's like just like headbanging or whatever. It's like so many things that does music or sound to me. That's amazing. I mean, I just discovered my son is like opening the window in the back, and when you drive like 70 and you have this sound from the window, pop, 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 and it's like so annoying. All of a sudden, like in half a second, you have a sound that's making you crazy and so annoying. And this is also what sound can do to you. It's like a range of emotions. So sound, we are all like on the same page, is very important. With the electric vehicles, the first time we have the chance to really use it. When you're honest, it's like the first time we have like a blank page where you from scratch like really use it in all its variety. And to be honest, we didn't got it from the first time, because like back then I can remember we just enjoyed not to have a sound there. The first thing was like, we don't want any sound, because we were so stoked by the fact that there is no sound. We're like, really? You want to make a sound in that one? Because actually we're like fascinated by the fact there's nothing for now. Imagine that. I mean, apartments will raise in price, which are like now low because they're built next to the biggest
Busy
street in the
roads.
city, and you have all EVs now, and then they raise in price because it's like silent again.
Yeah.
But now that's like really cool. And I actually enjoy working with our sound designers right now because they show me things that like sound developing within the speed. It's like
Okay.
not only with pressing the pedal, developing with the speed of the car, with the acceleration, with like slowing down, but also with like the weather, the lighting, with like scenarios when you welcome to the car, like giving you a warmth, welcoming.
Yeah.
It's like sound that is like in the foreground or like being like really in the background. It's really, really important. And you know that we have like that great composer from Hollywood, like it's Hans Zimmer, and you were driving the i4 already.
Yes, correct.
Yes. Yeah, I saw it. You enjoyed it though.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I always find that the funny part though, is like sometimes you speak to designers that, head of design, all manufacturers, and, sometimes they don't actually get to drive the car for the first few months and everyone else gets to drive the car first. And they put all this time into the design and I'm like, oh, sorry.
No, you shouldn't be sorry because I really like that. I mean, this is exactly what should happen. First, get it to the fans and to the customers. I mean, why should we drive it?
No, I'm a very big fan. It was absolutely amazing. I mean, the i4, gosh, because of course you've got the i4 eDrive 40. I mean, that has a range of 366 miles. I mean, that is phenomenal. If you were to say that to someone a couple of years ago, they wouldn't believe you. They'd say you'd made it up. I think it really is a spectacular achievement. But and so congratulations on that. I must say that. Huge congratulations. But how did the design process of the i4 differ from the design process of the other i models?
This was not more complicated, I have to say. We had to be more specific on this one because obviously we wanted to be more on point for more customers, though. Right. We really wanted to tackle more people because we wanted to get more people out of their comfort zone and to say like, yeah, this is for you people. This is for you guys. We wanted to really get this car more towards the middle of BMW, It's like, this is why we chose the four-door coupe. It is more where we have like the more traditional BMW customers. Yeah. And we wanted to bring this, let's say more future technology more towards our traditional customers and get them more close towards the future.
Yeah. I mean, you effectively want someone almost to step into a car, don't you, without even realising that they're going electric, because for those that are making the switch for the first time, I think, still find it quite a big mental block sometimes if maybe the design of a car is a bit too futuristic or too out there, and actually you just want to keep it as straightforward as possible. We're very straightforward people, really. We don't like change. We like what we know. So I think that's kind of what you've achieved there. There's this sense of familiarity, isn't there, with the i4, but at the same time, it does have this characteristic design about it. What would you say are the kind of main elements that really stick out for the i4 that people should be aware of?
Yeah, what I would point out to bring like the more traditional world towards the futuristic world, what I would personally like to point out that describes this transition quite well is the diffuser in the back.
Yes.
There is something that comes from the traditional combustion engine world that transitions into the futuristic EV world. That is the diffuser, right?
Yeah.
In the traditional world, you had like exhaust pipes. Of course, they had to be there because obviously you had to have them. And then one thing to show your performance was the amount of them. Right? So the more, the better, right? The more money you spend on your car. So that's also kind of like a sign of performance, right? And the future, you don't need them anymore because obviously an EV doesn't need exhaust pipes anymore. So what do you do with that space there? It gives space for efficiency. So we all know a diffuser in the back from racetracks, from racing cars, which could do exhaust pipes on the side. So they also didn't have any ones in the back or like totally different constructions back there. Instead, they used huge diffusers in the back for aerodynamic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So we know these from racetracks. So we can bring this kind of hardcore efficiency from racetracks to the clean world of EVs, and at a place where you normally would see like these performance signs from a traditional exhaust pipe world. And this is to me like something where you replace something from an old world with something from a new world with the same kind of emotional attachment. So we took something away from the old world, but give them something similar from the new world.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe people won't complain.
Well, they haven't done yet, so I think you've done a good job on that one.
Because it makes sense, though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Exactly. It makes sense. And that's the most important part, isn't it? You don't do it just for the sake of it. Now, there is this kind of blend, isn't there, of the sportiness and aesthetics. Why was it so important for you to combine the two components of sportiness and the aesthetics at the same time?
Yeah, because it's always like from a pure performance point of view. I mean, if you take a racetrack, it's like a racetrack, everything that you see on a racetrack is like a beautiness that comes from a pure performance, right? Yeah. There is nothing been done from a pure beautiness. It's just like it has to work, and then it looks from a pure functional point of view beautiful. You take the beauty out of its function, right? Sometimes it looks weird out of its function, but you accept it because of its function, right? So this is where you take the balance. Sometimes we make things, even though they don't function well, but they look cool, Yeah. So we make it as a fake, or it happens as a fake. This is not how we do it as BMW I, or I would say at BMW in general. But if it works from a functional point of view and from a aesthetic point of view, and therefore the aesthetic works, we bring it into the core design and say like, okay, now it becomes like one basic of a design, and then from there we develop a complete design.
Yeah. So off the back of that then, because obviously the kidney grille, a big talking point that's
the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because obviously the kidney grille, it's something that BMW fans are always very passionate about, and they always have an opinion on, don't they? But it is a very prominent feature, and obviously sort of technically it's not necessarily needed as an air vent to cool down the battery that would be there instead of the engine. So tell me about a little bit of an insight into the design of that.
Yes, I actually like that everybody is passionate about our kidney grille. If people wouldn't, there would not be any need to do that anymore, because people wouldn't recognize it anymore. And that's like our icon. And I'm happy about that people recognize our kidney grille. Yes, we decided to make it more prominent on some of our cars. And in the past, obviously, we talked about it. Domagoj talked about it. You talked with him about it, I think.
Yep.
Our kidney grills had a function serving as like air intakes for our engines. We all know it. Now for our electric vehicles, they are closed. So they are on the i4. They are closed for aerodynamic reasons. It's way more efficient to close them up there. But also, therefore, we could place some sensors behind them and integrate some other sensors way more efficiently underneath in the kidney there. So we did also on the iX.
Yes.
So whatever we do there, it's always there with a reason. And we design our kidney always new. That's for sure. And we design our kidneys always with the character of the product in mind. And we always want to give our cars different characters. So
yeah, no, it's a fascinating. It's because also you kind of look back on maybe when you thought at the time when a new BMW came out the grille was too big, or you weren't quite sure of it for one reason, and now you look back on it and you're like, oh, it fits the car perfectly. I think it just takes everyone a bit of time to get used to, doesn't it? It's change. That's ultimately what it is. It's change that it takes a while to adjust to.
if people wouldn't recognize anything that is new, it wouldn't be probably new.
Yeah. And now let's talk about the rims, because they are super striking on the i4. What's the reason behind that?
That's a combination of two worlds. A little bit like the traditional world and the new world, because we had like different requirements that at first glance like fighting each other, and we were sitting there and it's like, oh damn, how do we deal with it, right? On one side you have like engineers telling you, okay, this car has like that much performance. We need like wheels that are stable enough to have like this dynamics, and they have to go that quick around the corner there, and that fast like this, and they have to be that stable. And you're like, oh, okay, well, not problem. So they have to be that thick and that wide and la la la. And then you have aerodynamic guys telling you like, yeah, but they have to be that efficient and they have to be that sleek and that closed. And basically they have to be like totally closed, because like no holes. And you're like, oh, okay. So they are like completely flat outside. And then you have the brake guys telling you like, okay, brakes getting like seriously hot, and you need like these holes in there to get the air out of the brakes. And you're like, okay, can you all sit together and talk to each other?
Yeah.
Because it's not going together.
I think I've worked out what your job is. It's actually you're a mediator.
Sometimes,
you're mediating
yes,
between
right?
all the different parties to try and come up with a solution.
And so you have all these guys, and they're all right. They're all right, because these guys are all rocket scientists, and they know best of their job, and they all want the best for the car. But it simply doesn't go together. It simply doesn't go together, all the requirements. So you have to find a way to get it together. And the good thing is that we as designers don't know anything from what they're talking about, because you just know a little bit of everything.
Sure.
And don't go too much into detail from what all these people are saying. You're blessed with not knowing everything from what they're saying, because you could keep like the big picture in mind.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, okay, let's do it that way. We built the wheel basically like you guys want, but you want to have it closed. So actually we close it there with like just a little bit of aluminum piece here, so the air could flow around there. But in the middle, we keep it open so that the heat from the brake could come out there. So are you okay there? So it sounds a little naive, but with like the big picture, without knowing too much into detail, all of a sudden it works. And you brought these people together and they say like, oh yeah, it could work. So what we basically did, we cast a traditional wheel and put on like small aluminum pieces, been set up from the top to close up the wheel again and make it efficient from the aerodynamic point of view. And of course, from a design point of view, we can make it like highly attractive, because still like the traditional wheel is shining through. And in contrast, we bring these more flatter aluminum pieces as like a more, let's say, futuristic look on top of it. So this is like a nice balance and contrast between like the new world on the aerodynamic efficiency towards like, let's say, the more traditional racy world in combination. This is what makes these wheels like so appealing.
And so striking, they do really, really stand out, don't they? And again, it's sort of one of those features that you don't need to see the rest of the car. You can spot it and be like, that's an i4, because it's such a distinctive part of the car. Now, another feature that I particularly like, and you have to tell me more about it, is, I believe, so the rear lights, I didn't spot this until somebody mentioned it, but if you look at the lines used in the rear lights, it's actually the same form that a heartbeat takes. Now, was that on purpose?
No,
Did that
it's
just
on
happen?
purpose.
Was that a coincidence and someone spotted it? Oh, wow. You came up with that idea?
We came up with that idea because it's like we talk, and this is also something that I really like at BMW. You can imagine that even though we are like a lot of car guys and women in here talking a lot about like cars, race, but we also talk a lot about like emotions, love, and these things, right? And when you talk about emotions, is something that is like really not under control. It's something that happens, right? And therefore, it's like really hard to talk about it because it's hard to get it in mind and to get it in words, right? This is why poems and everything is all really hard. And artists, it's like it's hard to get it in words and write it down and everything. So the heartbeat is something that you don't have under control. Tell me one person who could have his heartbeat under control. It's like probably a Buddhist monk.
A deep diver, free diver.
Oh, okay, yes, okay, yeah, you're right.
But he can only do it for 2 minutes.
Apnoe divers, right? They could have it, but it's like if you're excited, immediately your heartbeat rate goes up, right?
Off the scale.
If you're scared, if you're in love, if like your emotions do anything, it's like your heartbeat is like an immediate reaction.
You're totally right. And in Formula E, the electric racing championship that I present, we put heart rate monitors on the drivers, and it's fascinating. So, because we can see that telemetry during the race.
Yeah.
And, some of the drivers, their heart rates like off the scale before the start of the race. Other drivers are very cool and calm. Then you might have a bit of action on track while one's trying to do an overtake. And again, the emotions and the heart rate rockets up. And it's fascinating. You're completely right.
Yeah, I have a track as well because yesterday I had a presentation and I freaked out during the presentation. I could see on my heart rate. There's nothing I could do about it. And that's the reason why we put like the heartbeat on the taillight, because that is like the immediate translation into emotional reaction.
Love it. What a great idea. Very, very cool. That has got to be the only rear light with a heartbeat embedded in it. Brilliant. We're almost running out of time, but I think we sort of touched upon the sound design of the i4. But, if I close my eyes and there is an i4 coming down the road, are there any kind of special characteristics that I need to look out for?
No, I would say the i4 is like kind of more hovering than the i3. It's like more dynamic. It's like always more on the quicker side. The i3 would be more on the relaxed, more on the cruisy side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the i4 is more on the Concorde, kind of like it's always more on the quicker one.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to being able to tell if I can test myself and recognise the difference. Okay, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I do have one final question, though. It's quite a big question to finish up on. Because, of course, like all of your work, everything that BMW is doing around the i-Series, it's huge, and there's so much progress being made, particularly as you said at the beginning of the sort of i project came around in 2006, like back before anyone was really thinking about electric cars. So there's so much that we're doing at the moment to try and tackle future challenges. But what are your next big challenges that you're facing and that you're going to be tackling?
I exactly know what's on my table right now, but I obviously can't talk about these ones, but I probably could talk about what I expect could be like big questions that I would like to tackle.
Okay.
All over.
Please share.
Of course, we have to think about what's going on with like urban mobility in general, with like big cities and like when cities start growing and like urban centers becoming like mega cities and even bigger, and like city centers like spreading out and becoming like even bigger surroundings. I would like to see how like autonomous mobility is developing, because I strongly believe in that. It would be amazing if cars could drive completely, fully autonomously. I couldn't wait Actually, I couldn't wait because I would love it if I don't have to drive on my own to work.
I'm with you.
I would love if I could only drive on my own if I really want to, and therefore to have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to. I mean, I know that technology exists for that. It's just a matter of like volumes and bits and bytes and calculating power and everything and infrastructure. And also, these are possibilities for safety and all these things. And yeah, I would love to work on still sustainability solutions and also on what I love on giving back to society, how cars like interact with the society and also with the cities and their environment in the future. It's like not standing around and wasting space.
Well, I knew you said you were busy, but solving urban mobility and autonomy, that's definitely going to keep you busy for the next few decades, that's for sure.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
Well, Kai Lange, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Nicki.
It's our pleasure. And thank you to all of our lovely listeners for tuning in for another episode of Changing Lanes. And if you do want to catch the other episode that Kai has already recorded with Jonathan, then do go to episode number 42 of Changing Lanes. It's called The Creative Mind Behind a BMW I. I would thoroughly recommend listening to it. It is a good one. Anyway, once again, thank you so much to all of our listeners for tuning in for another episode of Changing Lanes, and we'll see you very soon.